Chapter 32. Sunday, 27th of October. Pond Cottage was a long, narrow thatch house with low-beamed ceilings, part of it dating back to Tudor times. It was situated down a winding country lane to the north of Henfield, a large village 8 miles from Brighton, and it had been Red's family home and refuge all her life. It sat behind a tall, immaculately trimmed yellow yew hedge, topped with a row of top-head birds, which her father kept trim with almost obscene care. To the rear of the low roof house was an equally immaculate tender garden, with a duck pond that had an island in the middle, an acre of perfect lawn, and a view over miles of farmland beyond. Since his retirement as a family solicitor in Brighton, her father divided his waking hours between working on the garden and with her mother sailing the small cruiser, Red Margot in all weathers, the boat named after her and her sisters was her parents' real passion. Red and her sister had spent many childhood weekends and chunks of their holidays on board, sometimes reluctantly, sometimes happily, exploring the port of Devon, Cornwall, Normandy, Brittany, and Channel Islands. Red loved the pride her parents took in that garden, and the sight of the house now, even in the falling rain, beneath a dismal sky, cheered her a little, although in truth she wasn't particularly excited by the prospect of seeing her sister and her tosser of a husband. She and Carl had planned a long, lazy Sunday morning in bed, then a drive to one of his favourite country pubs, maybe the Griffin at Fletching, or the Cat at West Hoathly, or perhaps the Royal Oak at Wynnum for lunch. Arriving here today, she felt even more of a failure than ever. She paid the taxi, pulling the banknotes from her purse with shaking hands, and gave the driver a large tip because he had been so kind and sympathetic to her over her car. Then she climbed out into the rain, still feeling flustered and shaken, and hurried up to the front door, pulling her key out of her handbag, conscious of just how late she was for Sunday lunch. It was 2:45, and her father was a stickler for sitting down at the table at 1 on the dot. Her parents, her sister Margaret, and her brother-in-law, the odiously pompous Rory, were seated around the oak refectory table eating crumble and custard when she entered the kitchen dining room. There was a cosy heat from the acre and the sweet smell of a log fire, which she knew would be burning in the ingle nook in the sitting room. "You poor darling," her mother said. "What a trauma. I'm sorry we started without you." But the lamb would have been ruined. In her early 60s, with a tangle of shoulder-length, flame-coloured hair and dressed in a baggy sweater and jeans, her mother was still a very attractive woman. But Red thought, how could she still, after all these years, not be able to get her head around the knowledge that her daughter did not eat lamb? She wondered. Red had been traumatized at the age of 9 when they had been stuck in a traffic jam behind a lorry crammed with sheep being taken to Shoreham Harbour, and she had refused to eat it ever since. For much of her childhood, out of principle, she had been a vegetarian, and although she occasionally and reluctantly did eat some meat now because she found herself sometimes craving it, she steadfastly refused to touch lamb. She stared at her mother, her temper already frayed enough without this thoughtless comment. Why couldn't her mother remember that fins were fine with her, but fur, paws, and hooves were mostly not? The lamb was pretty badly ruined the day someone killed it, and she chopped it up. "Mummy," she nearly said, but kept it cool. She was in no mood to have a row right now, and nor did she have the strength. Her father, hairy array as ever, dressed in shapeless trousers, plimsoll, and a Shetland sweater over a yellow shirt, was right behind her, thrusting a glass of champagne into her hand. "Keep it chilled for you, my angel," he said, giving her a kiss. "Your car caught fire," her elder sister said. "That old wreck? It's hardly surprising. It was bound to happen one day." Margaret had always managed to make Red feel inadequate from earliest childhood, and her cutting, supercilious smile was doing it again right now. 4 years older than her, Margot had already been the apple of her father's eye. Margot was the one who got the high scores and the great reports at school, followed by double first at Oxford. She was now a high-powered lawyer in the city, earning, their mother had confided, close to £1 million a year. She sat at the table with her short, razored black hair and sharp features, smartly dressed as ever in her designer maternity wear, and now, of course, she was the one who was pregnant. 7 smug months pregnant, with the immaculate brand-new 5 Series BMW smugly parked in the driveway, not a car that would ever catch fire. Rory, who worked for a hedge fund, was related to a Tory cabinet minister and harboured political ambitions of his own, was as far up his own backside as was possible without his head actually appearing out of his own throat. Red liked to tell her friends, an old Etonian with aristocratic and antecedents. He was a tall, chinless wonder with a lock of floppy, fair hair, dressed today in pink shirt, red cords, and black suede Gucci loafers. You're bloody lucky it happened where it did, Red, he said, over the crass politician before even becoming one. Just imagine if that had happened on the major road in rush hour. Could have caused delays to hundreds, maybe thousands of people. Classic cars belong in museums, Red, not on public roads. Or up your rectum, Red nearly said. It's a pretty car, darling, her mother said, but not practical, is it, for everyday use? Actually, I disagree, Red said. There's an argument classics are much greener than modern cars. Your mother and I are so relieved you weren't hurt, her father said. So what happened? The fire brigade reckoned it was probably caused by the wiring. They said it happens with old cars sometimes. The car's destroyed. Apart from the car, darling, her father asked, how are you? How's the new man in your life? New man? Margot suddenly looked interested in the way of a vulture spotting fresh roadkill. He sounded really nice, her mother said. A doctor. Quite a contrast to that awful liar, Bryce. Red felt her heart twist. Tell us about this new man, Margot said. Red sipped her champagne, thinking she hadn't told her family the latest news, and she didn't feel like telling them at this moment. We are all so bloody relieved you have Bryce out of your life. He really was a horrible little man, her father chipped in. Of course we could never have said that to you at the time, but what a total con man. Thank God we found out in time. You really had a lucky escape, Margot said. God, how close did you come to marrying him, darling Red? We all love you and want the best for you, but that creep, Bryce, what's his name? Honestly, he was the pits. I loved him, Red said defiantly, draining her champagne. She wasn't driving now and could drink as much as she liked, and one thing she really liked about her parents was their shared love of booze. At the time, I really loved him. Out of desperation, Margot asked. Red glared at her sister, then reached for the decanter of claret and filled her wine glass. Is that why you married Rory? She said. Her anger started to boil over because you were thirsty and desperate not to be left on the shelf. I don't think that's the case at all, Red, Rory said indignantly. Her mother broke the awkward silence that followed. Margot, darling, I'm sure Red didn't mean that, she said, looking pointedly at Red. Did you? None of you seem to understand that I did actually love Bryce then. Yes, totally and utterly. I'd have done anything for him. She shrugged and drank some wine, then looked at her sister. Okay, so maybe I fell for Bryce because I was desperate. I was never Miss Perfect like you, okay? Shall we change the subject? Their father said. Let's talk about something more cheerful. This flat you found, Red, it sounds perfect for you. I want to hear about this new man in your life, Margot said insistently. Red downed her glass of claret in one and refilled it. Getting peace, she decided, was the best option today. She was so badly wanted to tell them all about Carl's death, but now something held her back. So maybe it was the fear of adding yet another item to the long list of failures and disasters that seemed to catalogue her life to date. Or maybe it was simply that after the nightmare of her past couple of hours, she was badly in need of some TLC from her family. I really did think Bryce was the one, Red said. I owed a lot to Mum for finding out the truth about him. God knows what would have happened if she hadn't been so perceptive. I could have ended up marrying a monster. But you're moving on now, aren't you, darling? Her father said. You found this new flat that you like. I'm happy to exchange contracts soon. I'll love you to see it. Where is it? Her sister said. Quite close to where I am now. Along Camptown seafront. It's gorgeous. The top floor with a balcony overlooking the sea and a real sun trap. And I think a good investment. It needs some renovation, but I'm fine with that because it'll be a good project for me. When can we go and see it, darling? Her mother asked. Pretty well any time. The owners are away in Australia, perhaps next weekend, either Saturday or Sunday. If you're free, I'll arrange to get the keys from an agent. Are we free, darling? Her father asked, looking at her mother too for confirmation. Sunday would be best, her mother said. We're meant to be bringing the boat back on Thursday or Friday if the forecast is right, and we have a lot to sort out on it at Brighton Marina on Saturday. Yes, her father said. We're bringing her back from Chichester to the marina for the winter, so Sunday would be best. Look forward to it. Chapter 33, Sunday 27th of October. Seething as he listened to the conversation, Bryce Lauren made a note in the large line moleskin notebook titled Red File, into which he transcribed every conversation that Red and her family had. Her totally fucked up family. He could picture the dining table exactly. He sat there himself through several painful lunches and dinners with Red and her evil parents, and on 2 occasions with her equally toxic sister and her dribbling turkey of a husband. But Red's sister and her husband were just a shy sideshow. Her mother was the truly evil, poisonous one, supported by her vicious fool of a husband. I could have ended up marrying a monster. He wrote down the words. Really, Red, I'm a monster, am I? Well, if that's what you think, then a monster I shall be. But I don't think you really meant that, did you? Maybe you're just upset over losing your car. It was a bit of a dodgy vehicle. I did warn you about it. You really should not have been driving something that old with none of the modern safety features in it. Good riddance, I say. But hey, I understand you're upset. You need cheering up. A nice gift might cheer you up. Perhaps, yes. I have good thoughts about this. A gift would be a nice touch. Bryce looked at his watch. He had dated Red for almost a year when they had been walking arm in arm down Bond Street in London and had stopped to look in the window of Cartier. She told him then that she thought they were the most elegant watches in the world. He remembered the look of total joy on her face the day, just a few weeks later, he had slipped the Cartier tank watch on her wrist. But that was then. He turned his focus back to the conversation, just one of the communications sent to him regularly throughout the day and night by the spy bubble software, then relayed it from the start, listening intently, especially the parts where they were talking about him. He sounds really nice, a doctor, quite a contrast to that awful liar, Bryce. That was her mother's voice, Camilla Westwood. Camilla. Oh, you smug cow, Camilla. Don't you realize how much I loved your daughter? I loved her in a way I never loved anyone before. She was my light, my laughter, my sunshine. She was quite apart from being the sexiest creature I've ever met, my soulmate. Your daughter was a woman who told me, who whispered into my ear while we were making love that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with me. And I responded right back at you. 3 days later, she dumped me, poisoned by you and your husband. I'm a monster, am I? Okay, I'm fine with that. I can live with that. So long as you understand what monsters do. They kill people, they rip them to shreds. Happy with that? Happy knowing you are going to die? You really should not have said that. I owe a lot to Mum for finding out the truth about him. God knows what would have happened if she hadn't been so perceptive. I could have ended up marrying a monster. Do you remember the last text you sent me, Red? When you were still as crazy in love with me as I was with you, before your toxic parents poisoned your mind. Every part of me is thinking of you. It is totally the best feeling. I wanted to stay with me for a long, long time. I'm high on you and what you do to me, and I love the time we spend together, even if it's just staring at each other. I feel so lucky we feel like this. I've never felt anything so strong. I totally adore it, and I totally adore every inch of you. I go to sleep dreaming of you, and I wake in the morning craving you and counting the hours until I see you again. XXX. Oh shit, I adore you. PS. Did I tell you I adore you? XX. PPS. Did I tell you just how much I adore you? XX. You sent this just 2 days before you dumped me. Nobody changes their mind that fast, not unless their mind has been poisoned. And I'm really sorry that no one can mess with another human's emotions in that way. There's a Rubicon in every relationship that we cross. You and I crossed it a long while ago. We crossed it, I thought, the day we were making love, and you asked me to come with my eyes open, staring into yours. That was the night our souls intertwined. Can you ever begin to understand the anger I'm feeling now? It's why I have to kill you. Besides, I cannot live in a world in which you are with another man. My heart just won't take it. I'm sorry, Red. Really, I am. We could have had such a great life together. Instead, we're going to have to settle for a great death. Single girl, 29, redhead and smouldering. Love life that's crashed and burned. 6, new flame to rekindle her fire. You want fire, Red? You got it. Chapter 34, Monday, 28th of October at 8:30 a.m. on Monday. Red sat once more in the basement consulting room of the terrace house close to Brighton Station, with the Crimson Buddha staring benignly down at her from the mantelpiece. The room felt chilly, the ancient 2-bar electric fire in the grate giving out scant heat. So how was your weekend, Red? Judith Biddlestone asked. Let's not go there. Oh dear, I'm sorry. Any parts of it you want to talk about? My car caught fire. Oh my God, are you okay? I'm fine. I managed to get out, thank you. Thank goodness, before it burst into flames. Afterwards, I had to endure some more sarcasm from my sister at Sunday lunch. It wasn't the greatest weekend. I kept thinking how Carl and I had planned to spend it. Your older sister, Margot, who you described as successful and who has never stopped letting me know it all my life. I don't think she ever helped you or confidence, has she? Probably not, no. Do you want to talk about your weekend, or shall we revisit what we bracketed at the end of the last session? Let's talk about Bryce. That's why I came to see you in the first place. You told me that the private detective your mother had secretly hired found out that Bryce lied to you about what he did for a living and about his past. How did he learn about what you had discovered? I confronted him with it. How did Bryce react? With total denial. He said the detective had the wrong person. What happened then? I said I needed some space to think about our relationship and our future. He didn't want to know. He kept insisting that we were engaged and we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. And were you engaged at this point? For some moments, Red was hesitant in replying. Well, in his mind, yes, we were having dinner in Cuba Libre, the restaurant where we'd had our first date, when he suddenly put a little box on the table. He took out a ring and slipped it on my wedding finger, and then asked me to marry him. Actually, I didn't like the ring. Wasn't my taste at all. It was very bling, and I was already uncertain about him at this stage. There were so many ups and downs, good times and bad. I told him I would have to think about it. That triggered another row. When we got back to my flat, he went bananas. I ended up calling the police, and PC Spofford came. They arrested Bryce and took him away because I was so scared to have him in the house. But they had to release him on police bail the next day because he hadn't hit me or anything. He'd just been abusive, and I didn't want to press charges. He was taken into custody the night he asked you to marry him due to his rage. You told him you needed time to think, and yet he believed the two of you to be engaged. How did you make sense of that? The psychologist asked. That's how things were with Bryce and me. What he wanted, he got. I learned not to contradict him. I knew I hadn't accepted his proposal, but calling the police hadn't worked. He was back the next day, being nice and acting all loved up because we were engaged. I just went along with it. It was important not to give him a reason to get angry. What the detective had uncovered, I'm sure, would have fallen squarely into the career of things that would give him reason to get angry. Definitely, things just went from bad to worse. The detective said Bryce had told me a pack of lies about his background and that he had a conviction for serious assault in the US. Part of me wanted out, but whenever I tried to broach this with him, he would burst into tears, throw his whole unloved childhood baggage at me, tell me that I was the only person who had ever given him a feeling of self-worth in his life, and he swore he would change. He said he knew he was perfect, but that the detective had got the wrong man, and that he hadn't lied to me about all those things. He was very convincing. I wanted to believe him. When you think about that now, why do you think you wanted to believe Bryce? I felt such a fool when I heard that the detective had found out, and especially that my mum had been right to not to trust Bryce. I guess I put so much on myself into the relationship, it was difficult just to walk away. The psychologist said, of course it was difficult, Red. I like the incongruity of hating the way you are treated in a relationship, yet not wanting to leave it to the experience of the newly trained troops. How so? Basic training for the army, British Army, is tough. Recruits are treated on the whole pretty harshly, and I've never met one that said they had a nice, easy time of it. Usually they were hurt and in pain, physical, emotional, or both. Every day they were humiliated and broken in the process, yet having given so much of themselves, they tend not to take kindly to a bystander suggesting that if the army had been so unkind, that maybe ought to leave and join the Royal Navy instead. That makes a lot of sense to me. I felt that I had invested so much of myself that I had more to lose by leaving than by staying, and he kept convincing me that if I broke up with him, I'd never find another man. And this may sound pathetic, I believe that. He made me believe that. I suppose I let him stay out of some kind of desperation. You have to understand that he had immense charm and is very persuasive, very manipulative. I do understand that. Do you allow yourself to truly know how well he manipulated you? He was a prize manipulator. He even managed to be nice for a long while after I challenged him about the private detective. I actually began to think maybe he had changed. I was going to leave him, but he begged me to stay, and foolishly I gave him another chance. Then one night, a few weeks later, something I said seemed to pull a trigger in him, and he went loopy again, totally berserk. Trigger? He was admiring himself in the mirror and naked. He's obsessed with his body. He gets up in the middle of the night, takes steroids, and does weight training. I just quoted that Robbie Burns line as he stared at himself with like absolute approval. I said, would that the world could see us the way as we see ourselves. And that was it. He smashed the mirror, then turned on me, screaming and shaking. He picked up a shard of broken glass and came at me with it. I actually thought I was going to die. I somehow managed to get out and ran into the street barefoot, screaming. A guy walked his dog, stopped and called the police for me, and Bryce was arrested. I decided then and there to throw him out while he was in custody. I packed all his stuff in a 2 suitcase that he had arrived with, including the ghastly Volga bling ring and the cardio watch. Then I asked Constable Spofford to come to the house the morning he was released on bail because I didn't know what would happen. Constable Spofford put all his stuff outside the front door, and he told Bryce when he turned up that I didn't want to see him and he wasn't to go in. And how did Bryce react? He didn't say a word, just took his stuff and went off quietly like a lamb, apparently. Curious, with what you know of Bryce, is that what you would have imagined he would do? At the time I remember feeling relieved that he hadn't made a scene, but after a few hours I started to feel really scared. Other people kept telling me it was over, but I knew it wasn't. I didn't think Bryce would ever let me go. Tell me why you think that. Because in his head I belonged to him. I had an anonymous email with a attachment. A couple of days later, I opened it. It was a cartoon drawing of playing card, the Queen of Hearts. I knew it was from him. I wasn't sure what to make of it, but it seemed maybe his way of saying goodbye. And then nothing. Total silence. I thought that perhaps he had finally got the message and I move on. Several of my friends tried to fix me up with new men, but I wasn't in the right frame of mind to meet anyone. Then my best friend Raquel Evans, a dentist, said that there was a very good looking young doctor named called Carl Murphy in the medical center where she worked, who was a widower with 2 boys. I agreed to go on a blind date with him. Raquel and her husband Paul, something clicked or sparked between us. I really liked him, and suddenly after all the darkness of Bryce, I could see light again. We had fun together. It wasn't the intensity of passion I had with Bryce, but I felt comfortable with him, safe for the first time in a long time as I could remember, and I really liked him. I could see a future with him. I actually liked that he had young children. He seemed to care about them so much, and that made him seem a good person to me. We started to make plans. And now you think he might be dead. Red shook her head. I know for sure now he's dead. His body's been identified by his dental records. He committed suicide, doused himself in petrol, self-immolation, they call it. Can you believe a doctor would do that? Cover himself in petrol, then set fire to himself suddenly. Surely a medic would know that what a painful death that would be. Why didn't he just take pills which he could have prescribed for himself? How are you processing this, Red? What sense are you making of it all? I still cannot believe he killed himself. You don't think it was suicide? I'm told the post-mortem strongly indicated that it was. But why? Why would he have done that? Are you asking me why? Can you explain it? I cannot make sense of it at all. I couldn't possibly comment without having known him, Red. I'm interested in how you are making sense of what has happened, given that you did know him. I thought I knew him. Do you think I should go to his funeral? What do you think about that? I don't even know when it will be or where. I'm hoping to find out today, but I wonder if it will seem more real if I do go. Maybe I'll get some closure. Funerals can be helpful for closure, but it depends on how you feel. I wish I could get some closure with Bryce, Red said, abruptly changing the subject. I still have it, the guilt that it was my fault, all the abuse that I brought it all on. The psychologist looked through her notes. You said that in our last session on Friday. Why do you feel that? Red thought for some moments. I guess that's how he made me feel, that I let him down all the time, in the kitchen, in the bed, that I couldn't live up to his expectations. You wanted to live up to his expectations, of course. Were you clear about what they were? I'm not sure I understand, Red replied. I apologize. I wasn't clear. Curious that I would become unclear as we were talking about Bryce and his expectations. What I meant to say was, did Bryce's expectations stay the same regardless of his mood or the situation? Red laughed bitterly and said, no, never. One day he would be pleased with me, and the next I'd do exactly the same thing, and he would fly into a rage. Did he do that in company if you were with his friends, for instance? That's something I realized was very weird about him. He had no friends, none. I thought all the men have a best mate, don't they? Normally men do. Red, yes. He had none at all. No former work colleague, childhood buddy. No one. I was all he had. In the early days, I was so proud of him. I wanted to show him off to all my friends. I arranged evenings out in bars and restaurants with some of them, but he got insanely jealous if I talked to any other man. One time at a party in Brighton, I was just having an innocent chat with the husband of a friend of mine when Bryce came up and asked him just what the hell he thought he was doing chatting me up. He was so furious I had to restrain him from hitting the guy and then took him home. We had a terrible row that night. He had called me a whore, a slut, all kinds of names. Then he tied me up, gagged me and raped me. I thought he was going to kill me. He left me tied up and gagged all night. She fell silent. You're safe now. Such a terrible ordeal, and it's over. You survived. Are you still with me, Red? Just about. Okay, stay with me. You don't need to go back there. It feels so real when I remember. Oh no. In the morning he was sobbing, begging me to forgive him. He told me he had only done it because he loved me and was scared of losing me. He would only untie me after I had promised not to call the police. When he finally did untie me, he got mad at me again because I'd wet myself. Judith Biddlestone nodded, her eyes softened and her mouth formed in an upside-down smile. I was so ashamed. The shame's not yours, Red. Who benefited most from you feeling ashamed? I guess Bryce did. I could never have told the police about the demeaning things he did to me. I can hardly bear to tell you. And yet you have, and in doing so have placed some of that shame back where it belongs, with Bryce. Red was silent for some moments, then she asked, do you think it's a good sign that I haven't heard from him since we split up, apart from the Queen of Hearts email a few days after? What do you think, Red? It's more than 4 months now. Do you believe it's over? I want to believe it, but I can't believe he would let me go so easily. I did think I saw him on Thursday outside the office, but maybe I was just imagining. I ran outside and couldn't see any sign of him. Oh no, my lovely red Bryce thought as he listened. You weren't imagining it at all. Chapter 35, Monday, 28th of October. Bryce sat, his earpiece plugged in, his whole body tight with anger. A muscle in his face was twitching. The side of his mouth, monster, ghastly, vulgar, bling. 4 months, counselor. What do you know about time in hell, lady? Linear time is meaningless construct. Why should 4 months be any different to 4 minutes, 4 days, 4 years? It doesn't hurt any less, it hurts more. The pain builds every day. It's pretty crass of you, a counsellor of all people, to assume I'd moved on. You might measure your times in minutes, days, months, but if all blends into one continuum of pain to me, 4 months of pain, I feel it like a weight crushing me like those hurtful words. I'm a monster, am I, Red? Vulgar, ghastly, bling. Is that what you thought of it, Red? It's a beautiful ring. I had it specifically made for you, but one of the best jewellers in Brighton. It cost me over £10,000 on my inheritance. Vulgar, ghastly, bling. You know what, Red? I'm starting to think I had a lucky escape from being stuck with a spoiled brat. Maybe I should be grateful to you for that. Really, I mean it. In fact, the more I think about it, the more grateful I am that you let me go. I'm going to give you a present to show you my gratitude. Thanks for listening.